Iraqi air bases housing US troops attacked by the Iranian missiles. More than a dozen Iranian surface-to-surface missile hit Ain al-Assad and Erbil air bases in Iraq. Iran says the attack is a measure in self-defense. Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says Iran does not seek escalation of war but will defend itself against any aggression. US President Donald Trump takes an assessment of the casualties and the damages of the attack, says all is well. The President of the United States will make a statement on the crisis later tonight. Death warrant issued against all the convicts in the Nirbhaya gang rape and murder case. The 4 convicts to be hanged on 22nd January. Nirbhaya's parents hailed the verdict by Delhi's Patiala House courts. The convicts counselled to file a curative petition. The probe by the police picks up into the JNU campus violence. University extends registration date for winter session to 12th January. The Vice Chancellor says university will help every JNU student who wants to register. Urges all the students to return to the campus. And in cricket, India score an easy win over Sri Lanka in the second T20 at Indore. Chased the target of 143 runs with 7 wickets and 15 balls to spare. Navdeep Saini adjudged man of the match. Hello and welcome. You're watching Doordarshan News with me, Nancy Kohli. Our top story: more than a dozen ballistic missiles have been launched at east to Iraqi bases housing US troops early this morning. The White House spokeswoman Stephanie Gruesome said that President Donald Trump has been briefed on reports of the attack on the US facilities in Iraq and is monitoring the situation. There was no immediate report of any casualty though. The Pentagon said it is working on initial battle damage assessments. Pentagon spokesperson Jonathan Hoffman said the US military would take all the necessary measures to protect US personnel as well as American partners and allies in the region. The attack on the Ain al-Assad air base came after pro-Tehran factions in Iraq had vowed to join forces to respond to an American drone strike that killed Iranian General Qassem Soleimani and Iraqi top commander Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis in Baghdad last week. And the White House spokeswoman Stephanie Gruesome said that President Donald Trump has been briefed on reports of the attack on the US facilities in Iraq and is monitoring the situation. In the wake of these events, US has also restricted its aircraft from flying over Iraq, Iran, Persian Gulf. And Jonathan Hoffman, assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, in a statement said that approximately 5:30 in the evening local time on 7th January, that is 4:30 in the morning according to the IST, Iran launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles against the US military and coalition forces in Iraq. Hoffman further said it is clear that these missiles were launched from Iran and targeted at least to Iraqi military bases hosting US military and coalition personnel at Al-Assad and Erbil. He further said that the US is working on initial battle damage assessment. The statement further read, I quote, "In recent days and in response to Iranian threats and actions, the Department of Defense has taken all the appropriate measures to safeguard our personnel and partners. These bases have been on high alert due to indications that the Iranian regime planned to attack our forces and interest in the region." The Pentagon spokesperson also said, as we evaluate the situation and our response, we will take all the necessary measures to protect and defend the US personnel, partners and allies in the region. And the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif in a tweet has said that Iran took and concluded proportionate measures in self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter, targeting base from which cowardly armed attack against our citizens and senior officials were launched. He said Iran does not seek escalation of war but will defend against any aggression. That's the tweet that was put out by the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. Meanwhile, the slain military leader General Soleimani was buried in his hometown in Kerman amid a sea of crowd. Yesterday, more than 50 mourners had lost their lives in the stampede during the funeral procession. And in the wake of the U.S. air bases attacked by Iranian missiles, the U.S. President Donald Trump has tweeted, and I quote, "All is well. Missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. The assessment of casualties and damages taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and the well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning," unquote. And U.S. lawmakers have reacted sharply to the attack on the air bases in Iraq. Let's listen in.
Well, it's very troubling. It's early. We know as many as 12 missiles have been launched. We'll have to determine how many of them successfully hit their targets, whether or not our defenses are able to mitigate some of that. We'll have to take a look at it overnight and then respond appropriately.
First, my immediate concern is for the safety and security of American troops, as well as those who are our partners in the region. My hope and prayer is that there haven't been American casualties, and we don't yet know that tonight. I think it's important that we consult with our allies in the region, that the President consult with Congress, and that he put forward a clear strategy for how to de-escalate this particular situation so we do not end up stumbling into another large-scale war in the Middle East.
I want to know whether the Iranians were shooting at our people or at infrastructure. But it is clear this is just another example of Iran trying to export terrorism.
And the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeted that she's closely monitoring the situation. She added that the U.S. lawmakers must ensure the safety of her service members, including ending needless provocations from the administration and demanding that Iran cease its violence. Highlighting the dangers of war, she said that the U.S. and the world cannot afford war. And more reactions, in fact, coming in. Republican Senator Marco Rubio tweeted, I quote, "I have been briefed on this evening's direct attack by the IRGC, which launched ballistic missiles from Iran's territory against 2 Iraqi bases hosting coalition forces. A full assessment is underway to determine an appropriate response," unquote. And in fact, more reactions coming in. The one that you have on your screens is by the Democratic presidential candidate, Pete Buttigieg. He's tweeted, going on to say, "Tonight, Americans in Iraq are under fire. My prayers are with them, their loved ones and their families," unquote. And let's now go across to our correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran, who's been keeping a very close eye on these developments taking place. Ramesh, first of all, all eyes will be on the statement that U.S. President Donald Trump will make tomorrow morning U.S. time, and that's tonight for us here in India. But, going by the language that he had put out in his tweet, beginning by saying all is well and so far so good, and also the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif saying that we do not seek escalation or war. How are you reading between the lines in these tweets made by these two leaders?
Right, so Nancy, let's walk our viewers through what's happened in the last 6 odd hours. Remember, 2 bases in Iraq were hit by Iranian missiles at about 4 a.m. India time this morning. So it's been more than 6 hours since then. And those 2 bases were one in Erbil in northern Iraq, in the Iraqi Kurdistan. The second at the Ain al-Assad Air Base, which is the second largest U.S. military facility in Iraq. So that has a significant importance for the American troops. Now, the strikes happened at about 4 a.m. India time, and that's exact time when the U.S. Killed Qassem Soleimani on Friday morning. So the IRGC, the Iranian armed forces, saying that we chose the exact time of Soleimani's killing to take revenge for that attack. So Symbolically, optically speaking, Nancy, the Iranians have planned it out. And this strike came barely hours after Soleimani's burial in his hometown of Karman in Iran. So a lot of symbolism and optics associated with this morning's retaliation. But that's, as you mentioned, Javad Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, tweeting that he called it a proportionate measure in self-defense, while Trump tweeting that all is well and that he will make a statement later in the next several hours. But the fact remains that we are standing by to hear from the Iranian Supreme Leader, Nancy, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, will address Iranians from the city of Qom, which has religious significance for the Iranian people and culture. And it remains to be seen whether this is a one-off event or can we expect similar attacks in the days and weeks ahead. But Iran saying that we will hit any state that helps the U.S. aggression. So it could potentially mean other countries in the region, namely Israel, maybe the UAE. So there are reports circulating in the social media, at least, that these countries could also be a target of Iran in the hours or days ahead.
All right, Ramesh, my next question, have we reached a point of no return? Has the risk of region-wide conflagration involving Iran, Iraq and Israel increased more than ever?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, Nancy. Are we gone beyond a point of no return? Not yet. We're not quite there because Iran saying we will not escalate if the U.S. does not retaliate to our missile launches this morning. So all eyes now on Washington, D.C. as we speak. People are waiting to hear from Trump, what Trump has to say in his address to the nation later tonight, India time. So from Iranian perspective, they say we are ready for any eventuality and they will avenge Soleimani's death, at whatever price it might come at. But as I mentioned, it remains to be seen how how the U.S. responds to this latest provocation. And if that happens, then we can expect things to escalate very quickly in the days ahead.
Absolutely, all eyes will now be on the response from the U.S. But, talking about the regional circumstances, Ramesh, how have they changed, over the past 4 decades? Because this rivalry between Iran and the U.S. is 4 decades old. How have the geopolitics, and of course, how has it changed? The regional circumstances changed because oil is no longer considered a weapon. The Strait of Hormuz, Iran cannot block that even if it has the ability to do so. So how has the dynamics really changed over the years?
Well, historically speaking, Nancy, there have been no diplomatic ties between Iran and the U.S. since 1979, 1980, after the Iranian Revolution. So for last 4 decades, there have been absolutely no diplomatic ties or relations between the two countries. And that has led to an escalation of hostilities and tensions between the two countries, which has had a ripple effect across the region. Now, Iran could retaliate by potentially blocking the passage of oil ships across the Strait of Hormuz. That may further escalate tensions. Iran could also choose to hit out at American bases in the wider region, in Kuwait, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia. So all eyes actually also on Iran, how it responds to the provocations in the days ahead. But speaking from India's perspective, Nancy, oil is a major factor for us for energy security. And any disturbance in that part of the world will have a cascading impact on India's economy, especially at a time when the economy is not doing so well. So India is monitoring these developments, and in the last few minutes we've heard from the Indian Foreign Ministry, which has advised Indian nationals to cut all non-essential travel to Iraq in an advisory for Indian nationals there.
All right, and Ramesh, would it be right to say that Donald Trump, by this latest act of his, of ordering the killing of General Qassem Soleimani, has got himself deeper into the West Asia quagmire, and perhaps the need of the hour for him right now is to step back?
Now, that's an interesting question, Nancy. In irony in terms, Donald Trump won the 2016 election on the back of his political plank, or the poll plank, of ending the so-called endless wars in West Asia.
Correct, yes.
He criticized Obama for launching those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But today we find that Trump is putting U.S. at risk of getting sucked back into the quagmire in West Asia. And some say it has a domestic compulsion dimension because Trump is facing the impeachment heat in the U.S. and also elections are due in November. So between now and November, Trump can be expected to hard sell his Iran policy to his core constituents and burnish his credentials in the run-up to his re-election campaign.
So is there a need now for everyone, all the leaders, specifically from Iran and the US, to move to realism behind the rhetoric? And has Donald Trump miscalculated, is mistaken by thinking that, by launching these strikes and taking these provocative steps, he's trying to boost his re-election in November this year?
That is what many observers in the US and around the world are saying, that there is a domestic dimension of compulsion to all of this. The US has been at the receiving end of Iranian belligerence for many, many years, many decades, in fact, Nancy. And they saw Qassem Soleimani as the major stumbling block in expanding US's influence in West Asia. Why? Because Soleimani was one man as the head of the Quds Force. He had influence over operations extending as far as Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and also Yemen. So US allies in the region, particularly Saudi Arabia and the UAE, for instance, and Israel, viewed Iran as an existential threat. And there are deep divisions in the region, with Saudi Arabia on the one hand and Iran on the other hand, and between Israel and Iran as well. So these are very disturbing times for the region.
Absolutely.
And it remains to be seen how the US navigates these choppy waters in the days ahead.
Absolutely, yes, trying times really for everyone around the world, and we do hope that better sense prevails on the leaders there. Well, thanks very much, Ramesh Ramachandran, for joining us and putting all these developments into perspective for us. Thanks very much. And now let's give you a brief background of how the events have unfolded, and if we can have that, that chart up for you. We're talking about December last year, when first the US bases were attacked. The attacks had taken place on the US military bases in Iraq that had killed a US citizen. And then, of course, US had blamed Iranian-backed militia inside Iraq, fires on its bases in retaliation. This is how the tensions once again had escalated between Iran and the US in December last year. And then again, the US embassy in Baghdad was attacked, and then we are seeing the attacks on the US military bases in Iraq. And after that, that big strike that had come in from the US in Baghdad, which had killed the Iranian top commander, Qassem Soleimani. Iran had also summoned various diplomats from Germany, Switzerland and the US. Iraq's parliament also called for the US and other foreign troops to leave. Well, these are the developments that had taken place up to this day. In fact, also so much so, Iran announcing to roll back commitments under its 2015 nuclear deal. And in fact, what we are seeing, the latest development that took place this morning was the 2 air bases in Iraq housing US troops that were targeted, where missiles were launched by Iran. And in fact, Iranian state TV has reported that a Ukrainian airplane carrying 180 passengers and crew has crashed near airport in the Iranian capital Tehran. The cause of the crash is yet to be ascertained, and more details on that tragedy that had taken place is awaited. That crash that took place this morning, Ukrainian airplane carrying 180 passengers on board that crashed near Tehran. The cause of which is yet to be known, but the plane carrying 180 passengers and crew crashed near Tehran. Now, moving on now, the External Affairs Ministry has issued a travel advisory for Iraq. The ministry spokesperson in a tweet has said, in view of the prevailing situation in Iraq, Indian nationals are advised to avoid all the non-essential travel to Iraq until further notification. Indian nationals residing in Iraq are advised to be alert and may avoid travel within Iraq. He further tweeted, our embassy in Baghdad and the consulate in Erbil will continue to function normally to provide all the services to Indians residing in Iraq. And in more news, travel advisory has also been issued by Singapore and China to avoid airspace over the Gulf region, keeping in view the crisis that had been shaping up. Now, EgyptAir, Egypt's flag carrier, has said it will suspend its flights to the Iraqi capital Baghdad for 3 days starting from Wednesday, that's today, because of the unstable security situation in Iraq. The suspension that will continue until Friday was taken for the safety of the passengers and planes and until the security situation stabilizes. There, the flights will remain suspended by EgyptAir. We'll keep getting more inputs on that, on the crisis that's unfolding between the US and Iran. But we're moving on now to some other news and news from back home, where 10 central trade unions have called for a nationwide strike today. The strike has been called against certain government policies concerning prices, public sector undertakings, foreign direct investments and labor laws. On the agenda are a few farmers' issues as well, including the minimum support price and the supply of adequate ration. And talking about the judgment that came yesterday, well, that was certainly one of the much awaited judgments where justice has perhaps been delayed but not finally denied. A Delhi court on Tuesday issued the death warrant for the execution of the 4 convicts in the Nirbhaya gang rape and murder case. They will be hanged till death on 22nd January at 7 in the morning. 7 years ago, the news of the brutal gang rape and the death of Nirbhaya had outraged India. Here's more.
The accused in the heinous gang rape on the night of the 16th of December 2012 that left the nation shaken are a step closer to hanging until death. Delhi's Patiala House Court ordered that they be hanged on the 22nd of January at 7 a.m. in Tihar jail. The order was pronounced by Additional Sessions Judge Satish Kumar Arora, who issued the death warrants against the 4 death row convicts.
इनको 7 दिन का 18 दिसंबर को जब रिव्यू पिटीशन डिसमिस हुआ था, उसके बाद 7 दिन का नोटिस दिया गया था, मर्सी पिटीशन फाइल कर सकते हैं तो करें। बावजूद इसके 3 वीक निकल गए और आज तक कोई मर्सी पिटीशन चारों में से किसी भी कन्विक्ट की तरफ से नहीं फाइल किया गया है।
The court has given the convicts 14 days. This means that they have 2 weeks to file a curative or mercy petition. Convict Akshay Singh's counsel has said that he will file a curative petition.
क्यूरेटिव पिटीशन और डेथ सेंटेंस को स्टे करने की एप्लीकेशन सुप्रीम कोर्ट में फाइल की जाएगी, जिसके आधार पर सुप्रीम कोर्ट स्टे देकर आगे का प्रोसीजर करेगा और उसको डिसाइड होने के बाद मर्सी पिटीशन राष्ट्रपति का फाइल करेगा।
During the hearing, the prosecution said that there was no application pending before any court or the president right now by any of the convicts, and the review petition of all the convicts was dismissed by the Supreme Court. The counsel for 2 of the convicts, Mukesh and Vinay, said that they were in the process of filing a curative petition in the Supreme Court. Later, the court interacted with the convicts via video conferencing. Nirbhaya's parents welcomed the order as one that will raise the confidence of women.
इस फांसी से देश के महिलाओं का कानून पर विश्वास जगेगा, आस्था जुड़ेगी और सबको
इस तरह के हैवानगी करने वाले लोगों के मन में एक डर जरूर पैदा होगा, क्योंकि 4 जब एक साथ लटकाए जाएंगे तो आगे आने वाली पीढ़ी भी सोचेगी कि नहीं हम क्या करें क्या ना करें।
The union government as well as leaders across party lines welcomed the decision.
I think this is 7 years too late, but having said that, finally justice for Nirbhaya's entire family and for every person in this country.
मैं आज ये कहूंगी कि निर्भया के माता पिता ने जो लड़ाई लड़ी है पिछले 7 साल से, मैं उनको अपना ट्रिब्यूट पे करती हूँ।
मैं उस माँ को सलाम करती हूँ जिसने आज कोर्ट को मजबूर कर दिया कि डेथ वारंट जो है 22 जनवरी के लिए दे दिया गया है।
The 4 accused in the Nirbhaya gang rape case, Vinay Sharma, Mukesh Singh, Pawan Gupta and Akshay Kumar Singh, were sentenced to death in 2013. In 2015, one of the accused, Ram Singh, committed suicide at Tihar jail. Another accused was released after spending 3 years in a correction centre on the grounds of being a juvenile in the same year. Last year in December, the Apex Court dismissed the review petition filed by convict Akshay Kumar Singh. The review petitions of 3 remaining convicts were also rejected by the court. While 22nd January has been decided as the date for hanging the convicts, they still have the option of filing curative petition along with mercy petition. If they decide to file these petitions, the hanging could be further delayed. But one thing is certain, that these convicts do not have much time. With Vikas Arthi in Delhi, DD India.
Now, the probe into the JNU violence has gathered momentum, and several teams of the Forensic Sciences Laboratory arrived at the campus on Tuesday to collect evidence, including the CCTV footage in connection with the violence in the university that had left at least 34 people injured. Hindu Raksha Dal has claimed responsibility for the brutal assault on teachers and students by a masked mob on 5th of January. The Delhi police said they are investigating the claims of Hindu Raksha Dal regarding the attack. The Delhi police have also lodged 2 FIRs in connection with the violence carried out in the JNU server room. Meanwhile, the JNU Vice-Chancellor spoke with the media on Tuesday and said some students who opposed the registration process had ransacked the room and attacked him on 14th December last year. Describing the JNU campus a safe place, he's urged all the students to return to the campus. He also said that university will help every JNU student who wants to register for winter semester after extending the deadline till 12th of January without any late fee. And an update now on the weather conditions. Rain slashed parts of Delhi NCR early this morning, and the rain also caused the rush hour to witness some traffic snarls at several places. The weathermen have predicted heavy downpour throughout the day with the possibility of hailstorm in isolated areas. According to railway officials, 16 trains were running late over the northern railways due to inclement weather. News from around the world. Dozens of Australian firefighters formed a guard of honour and stood with hand on heart on Tuesday to bid a solemn farewell to their colleague firefighter. Andrew O'Dwyer, one of the 3 volunteers firefighter killed when his fire truck crashed while battling Australia's bushfires. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison paid heartfelt tributes to the departed soldier. New South Wales Rural Fire Services Commissioner Shane conferred medals and a fire helmet to the family of the firefighter. The young daughter of a firefighter received her father's service medal. In emotional scenes, the toddler wore her father's medal and a fire helmet in front of his coffin, and she refused to leave his coffin's side. Meanwhile, a Business Council of Australia would set up a trust of $17.3 million that could be used to pay for the education of children who had lost their parents while volunteering in the disasters. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the news. Thanks for being with us.